Welcome to the Growth Room with David Daniels. Today we're incredibly fortunate to have Meghan McFall, Director and Board President of Ashtech Tech. Excuse me. Dana is a lot of economic development workforce strategist and consultant who has a passion for supporting leaders and organizations through periods of growth, change, and transformation. Today, we'll be diving into her unparalleled approach to C-suite consulting and exploring the significant trends she's observing in the industry. Megan, it's a pleasure having you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Perfect, perfect. Can you share, Megan, a little bit about your background and your role at Aztec?
So my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur and everything. My actual degree is in culinary arts. I was a chef for 18 years, and did a lot of restaurant consulting and things like that, and then moved into wealth management for a while. And while I was there, I noticed that there was some missing gaps for businesses because I did a lot of work with businesses within the investing and moving forward in assets and things like that. And so, as I kind of transitioned into this executive coach and business coaching through that because I saw the gaps in the systems. Ashtech was developed in 2024. I was on a contract role for a few years in a very rural area that had several native tribes and things like that. And as I experienced those different elements, I realized that there were huge gaps in the system. The contract I was under was a public contract, so I was working under government and higher ed institutions, and it showed me the restrictions that those institutions and government has, which was good. But at the same time, I knew under the private sector that I could develop and do more for businesses as well as the executives on a private level. And so that's where Ashtech came from. We focused on workforce development and economic development because businesses are a huge part of that economic development in any area, regardless whether you're rural or in a city. And so it makes a huge difference. And so as I was working with their CEOs and their executives, I saw missing leadership, missing experiences, missing trainings, things like that, that we knew that we could help with. And so that started our executive coaching program and our leadership launch pad as we aim to fill those gaps, for lack of a better term.
Nice, nice. That's what I was about to ask is what gaps were there, Megan? But you talked about them, so I was so intrigued about those gaps. So, what does a typical day look like for you at Aztec?
I actually run a kind of a different schedule. I actually have some chronic illnesses, and so I have to be flexible with those to ensure that I don't have flare-ups and things like that. And so
Yeah.
I'm actually a little bit different. I take my mornings off and then I work into the evenings just because that works better for my illness, my chronic illness. And so I usually start about noon, 1 o'clock, and then I work directly one-on-one with businesses and executives through the afternoon, and then in the evening is kind of when I finish out those other hours as far as developing. I write grants and developing programs that truly have impact within the areas. So Ashtech is just one of multiple businesses that I own and run, and so ensuring that we're able to keep everything afloat, but also all the businesses, even though from the outside looking in, you might say those have no connection whatsoever. They're actually all connected together, and they were started on purpose to fill the gaps that we saw within the system. So having a campground in northern Arizona and developing that resort out makes people think, well, what does that have connection? Well, we also own a food system, a regional food system, and that campground and those other hotels and things like that that we work with are actually part of the closed loop economy that we're trying to create, so that as we start businesses through, we actually can provide additional outlets for revenues and things like that as they're getting started and growing. And so that's where we connect into a lot of those other different. So from the outside looking in, I look very hodgepodge in my business decisions, but overall, we're actually very connected, and we create closed loop economy or closed loop economics as we develop things out.
Yeah, yeah. So hodgepodge wasn't the word I was thinking. I was like, she's some kind of mastermind here, and she's doing all this and interconnecting them and
Yeah,
making them depend on each other. That's
definitely.
genius. That's all that is genius. How has working with all the different companies, impacted the growth strategy with Ashtec at all?
So Ashtec has been a pivotal role in developing those out because Ashtec provides the training and education and onboarding side and workforce development side. We also do apprenticeship programs that are credited and things like that. We work with businesses, develop those out. But within our own sphere, Ashtec becomes a pivotal role in pretty much everything and all the other businesses and fill those additional gaps that you would normally have in a workforce or training situation. We also have a pathway for leadership development because we promote from within first. And so we make sure that we have the trainings and things like that available. And those are all operated through the Ashtec um, corporation.
Very nice, very nice. What major shifts? You've been doing this for a few years now, a couple years now at least. Um, what major shifts in the industry are you seeing that's impacting Ashtec at all?
Um, the shift to AI is always an impact, and we had a very interesting experience with AI, um, where we actually got a negative response when we switched over to more AI when it came to lead generation and things like that. And so we had to step back and reevaluate that. And then when we look at coaching trends and consulting, where coaching is moving more to the cohorts and in per or cohort or less one-on-one. And something that Ashtec set forth very beginning is that we wanted to make sure that we tailored all of our coaching and our training to the individuals in the room. And so having that shift was kind of interesting for us to see, and we get mixed reactions. There's people that love the cohort and group coaching scenario, but there's not a whole lot that do it, do just one-on-one. They've kind of moved into that 4-hour work week mindset, which is great as a business owner, but we've kept that one-on-one tailored to you, what you need and development. And as I expand my consultants that have worked under our firm, we make sure that they have that ability for flexibility and to adjust to any scenario within the businesses.
No, I got you. You mentioned the lead generation with AI. How did that go wrong for you?
Well, I think that with as much AI as we've got going around, you can spot an AI email that is
Mhm.
5 miles away, right? An automated email. Same for like LinkedIn. You get, I don't know about you, but I get about 20 of them a day, and I lose track of the
Right.
people I actually am talking to because I have so many of them coming in.
Right.
And that relationship that's built, that one-on-one relationship that is built and adjusted is just not there. And the reaction that we got was that negative reaction that it felt like they were talking to, even though we tried very hard to make it very authentic and adjust, they felt like they were talking to a bot, or they felt like they were talking to somebody that just wasn't there and just didn't personally know their cases, which is what we used to do. We investigate companies, we talk to them one-on-one, things like that, and developing that relationship with a consultant or one of our people was a huge aspect. In fact, we get about 80% of our clients that we work with are actually word of mouth and referral. And so that is a really important aspect of that because they're coming into us, saying, hey, I want to work with you. But at the end of the day, if they feel like they're not getting that one-on-one personal attention, we lose them. And we saw that heavily over the initial 90 days. And when we talked to people about what turned them off, it was the fact that they just felt like they were talking to a computer or a robot, and that just didn't feel authentic to them. So we made that adjustment to pull that aspect out. And so most of our marketing and our communications are still done by a person. And then we heavily integrated AI in the back of the house so that we could free up the time that our agents or our consultants are working one-on-one with people to build. So That was just kind of our experience with AI as we adjust to the temperatures of the
Right.
room. And that will happen in almost any business. And I think also one of the keys to setting up AI is having an expert that knows what they're doing
Right.
in order to set that up. Because if you do it wrong, how many of us have gotten one of those emails that says client's name and then the subject right in it? Like it didn't
Right.
actually fill in client's name.
Right.
And so it's like that's never going to get opened. Having
Right.
somebody that's an expert in that area will hopefully miss those and not have those happen as they go out. But there's just small things like that that easily can get missed and just leave a bad taste in people's mouth.
No, I get it. I get it, Megan. You said something genius again, though. You were able to pivot from something that wasn't working because you understood that the human aspect is still needed. Okay,
Hmm.
but then you guys were smart enough to keep doing using the solutions that you could in the background to free
Yeah,
up time so that again you could have more human interaction with your clients, and that's what it's all about. That's the difference between implementing, any kind of solution, AI, any kind of technology, the right way versus the wrong way. So,
for
let
sure.
me ask you, what's working for you well for you guys right now, in any other part of the business, and possibly what's been frustrating at all?
So that goes back to our 2025 year. We had an amazing, in the start of 2025, we were actually 100% grant funded, whether we had federal, state, or local grants, we were 100% grant funded. And what happened was when the administration did the whole review on funding and things like that, we actually lost three of our large grants that funded the majority of our operations, which
Okay.
was kind of devastating.
Right.
And going through the aspects of pivoting to make sure that we stayed solvent, but also allowed us to still serve the communities that we wanted to serve. Our
Right.
hearts are in our native communities, and we have offices in on two native lands
Right.
and underserved communities is kind of where we love to be. And so we had to figure out how we were able to do that and still serve the clientele that couldn't necessarily afford the high costs of coaching
Right.
and be able to do that. And so we had to sit down and do like a 180 on our approach. We also did a lot of in person. That was our focus, boots on the ground mentality. And so moving to a virtual aspect of that, we did have some meetings and things like that virtual, but it just wasn't a strong component. So swapping over to that virtual aspect, instead of doing 100% live in-person classes or online virtual classes, we had to look at the on-demand option so that we were more flexible and agile to the trends of what was going on. And that was really hard for me because I 100% believe that you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, but there's not a one size fits all for everybody. And so if you're
That's it.
creating a one size fits all, you're missing the cultural aspects to things, you're missing nuances. And even when you're working with foreign, or not foreign, different languages like our native languages
Right.
or Spanish and things like that. There's a lot of English words that don't translate over. And so
Absolutely.
it can be harder for those people to understand what you're doing or to implement that stuff in their lives because they don't understand how it fits. Or it's just not something that they've ever experienced or worked with just because of their background. And so
Right.
the cultural translation is a huge aspect of what we do. And so by making that and going to on demand, we had to find a way to be flexible within that, but still have an on-demand option that will fit for everybody. And so that was a huge challenge going through. And we still challenge, it's still a challenge for me because again, I'm the one that has it needs to be customized for everybody, right?
Right.
And so going through that change in 2025 was really, it was painful as we closed down a couple of offices and laid off people. But at the same time, it has allowed us flexibility. And a lot of those people have come back, which is great. But they're also been able to do nomad and travel the
Right.
world and still do their work. And that was really exciting for several of them. And then we're also looking at a Canadian expansion within the next 6 months as we finalize locations and things like that up in the Canadian provinces. But what that challenge for the mindset and what we were so mission oriented and driven to begin this company and then move into something that felt so foreign, but also to look at and say, okay, a portion of our revenues are going to so that we can still serve those underserved communities. And that's been something that's been really, really great. And we've been able to maintain as we separate that portion to cover those offices within those underserved communities.
Man, awesome. I can feel your passion and I love your mission. And that's awesome. Other than the expansion in Canada that I heard, where else do you expect to be with Ash Tech here in the next 12 to 18 months?
So we're making a few adjustments to accommodate multiple different needs that we're seeing. So we do have 450 courses. I have an incredible team that creates the curricula and be able to put, those courses into play. We're in the process of moving all of those online and starting a affiliate program so that people have access to those courses to back up what they're doing, whether it's coaching, consulting, or businesses themselves, and to be able to have access to that and then also create that win-win situation where they're getting a little bit of that payout to help their bottom line as well. But we're creating that affiliate program. We have a soft launch here going on through July, and then a hard launch by the end of the year as we make adjustments and tweaks to match what needs to happen. And then that will open up huge opportunities for multiple businesses. A few of our clients have requested that. And then we're also making the adjustment um, to essentially expand the different areas of our business that we need to look at. For example, our executive coaching program has actually been a very quiet part of our business. It hasn't been a forefront, but we're looking at making that leadership launchpad a bigger focus, and the executive coaching is going to be expanded. We've got a couple new consultants on the line to be able to pick that up that have got incredible background, and so you'll see more of an emphasis on that as we move forward too.
Man, look at you. Big things in the future for Megan and all of her businesses. I really appreciate it. And I know you're going to succeed because you have a great mind for it and you have a great heart for it. So I wish you all the best. And I really thank you again for being on the Growth Room today. And obviously with my company, Trust Course AI, if we could ever help with anything, you definitely reach out and we will.
Definitely.
Because again, we love your mission and we love your heart. Thank you,
Very
Megan.
cool. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.